Which players should you be targeting and avoiding in week 14 for your fantasy football leagues? We're talking about that in today's video. As always, make sure to give us that like and subscribe. Help us push to 800. We are, I think, 25 subscribers away. So if you're watching this and you have not subscribed, help us get there. And we are getting very, very close. It's been a while since I put these out. Things came up and work and all that and travel, and I haven't been able to put these out, but we were putting these out about the first 10 weeks of the season. Matchups to target and matchups to avoid for fantasy football. Now, these aren't the obvious guys. I'm not telling you to start Saquon Barkley because that doesn't help you. These are guys that maybe are fringe starters that you're debating, and you can use this as a tiebreaker. Starting with the quarterback, Sam Darnold. He is the consensus QB5. So I don't think there's a lot of debate here, but Sam Darnold, I love the matchup for Darnold. And again, when it comes to quarterbacks, what we're looking at is the offensive line pass protection versus the defensive line that they're facing and run blocking or pass rushing. So the Vikings and the Falcons play. I like this for the Vikings. They've done a pretty good job at protecting Darnold this year, only a 14% sack conversion rate. And the Falcons are only converting 13% of their pressures into sacks. Good recipe for Darnold. I think he can have just another good game. He's averaging 18.1 points per game, QB9. I think this is a pretty good matchup for Sam Darnold this week. Geno Smith, I think, has a pretty good matchup here going up against the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals are getting pressure on about 28% of their snaps. Seattle's giving up about pressure on about 30% of their snaps, but I do think it's a pretty good matchup for Geno. If the Seahawks can protect him, I think he can have a pretty good game. It's kind of been a weird season for Geno. His numbers suggest that he should be doing better, that he should be better than the QB 16 on the year when you look at his passing numbers, which are 436 pass attempts, which was leading the league, isn't quite leading the league anymore. He has over 3,200 passing yards, but only 13 touchdowns. Hopefully we get some positive touchdown regression here. But I like this matchup for Geno going up against the Arizona Cardinals. Matchups I don't like. Justin Herbert, who has been up and down, started to get going there lately, but I don't love this matchup of Herbert going up against the Chiefs. Chiefs are getting a pressure on 33% of the opposing quarterbacks' dropbacks. That's one of the highest in the entire NFL. Only converting about 12% of them into sacks, but the Chargers are giving up 20% of their pressures into sacks. So you kind of combine those two things, and could be a little bit of a tougher day for Herbert. Could be kind of a slugfest against division rivals. And then Jameis Winston, anyone going up against the Steelers and anyone going up against the Browns for that case, I don't love those matchups. Those defensive lines are really, really good. I don't think the Browns offensive line is that great. They're allowing a pressure on almost 30% of their quarterbacks' dropbacks. And the Steelers are getting a pressure on 33% and converting 19% of those into sacks. So expect some pressure. And when Jameis is under pressure, he could turn the ball over. Should be a good day for the Steelers defense, and we'll see what Jameis can do. Moving right along to the running backs, Tyrone Tracy. And again, what are we looking at for running backs? We're looking at the run blocking of the offensive line versus the run defense of the defensive line that they're facing. Tyrone Tracy and the Giants are going up against the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints are one of the worst pass run defense teams. They're giving up 1.55 yards before contact, which is really, really good. You're getting a yard and a half every time you touch it before being touched yourself. Pause. Tyrone Tracy should be pretty good. He's the consensus RB17. I could see him having a top 12 week if he has a majority of the workload like he did out of for last week, right? Last week he had a pretty good week in terms of snap percentage. DeAndre Swift. And again, there's some other teams like Saquon Barkley and the Eagles and the Lions guys, and Alvin Kamara. These guys all have good matchups as well, but you're starting those guys, no problem. DeAndre Swift, the RB19 consensus. If he plays, keep an eye on his health, by the way. But I actually like the matchup for the Bears going up against the 49ers. 49ers are giving up 1.41 yards before contact, which is, I think, sixth worst in the entire NFL. And the Bears are, allowing 1.5 yards before contact to their running back. So you combine those two, and Swift should have some room to run here. So I like that for him. I think the way to attack the 49ers is a little bit through the ground game. So hopefully Swift can be healthy. He can get his 15 carries. He can get his 2-3 catches. And I think he will be a pretty good start this week. And then a little bit of a deeper one. I don't know who the Raiders guy is going to be this week. Is it going to be Madison, Abdullah, McCormick? I kind of like the Raiders matchups versus the Buccaneers. It's not a great amazing matchup, but it's also it's a plus matchup for sure for the Raiders. I'm curious to see Sincere McCormick. I hope he gets the play here. He in very short sample size, he's been good in terms of yards per rush. And I want to just see more Sincere McCormick. So I think he can be kind of an outside flex spot for this week. Zach Charbonnet. Going into the bad matchups, Zach Charbonnet going up against those Arizona Cardinals that we already talked about. Don't really love that for him. The Cardinals only give up 1.21 yards before contact, which is pretty good. But also the Seahawks are just terrible at run blocking. By the way, I'm talking about Zach Charbonnet because Kenneth Walker has been ruled out. Seahawks only allowing their running backs 0.91 yards before contact. That is tied for the worst in the entire NFL. Put that into context. The Eagles, the best run blocking offensive line, are giving up 1.88. Basically, Saquon Barkley is getting almost 2 yards before getting contacted, whereas the Seahawks guys are not even getting a yard before getting contacted. That's how bad they are. So I don't think it's going to be a tough day for Charbonnet, who, Kenneth Walker can make it work at times because he's explosive. And he can kind of break tackles and turn, a tackle for loss into, a home run play. Charbonnet is just not that type of running back. He can still do pretty good or pretty well through volume, but I am a little bit worried about Charbonnet this week. Travis Etienne is another running back I am worried about. The consensus ranking RB23. Having a really bad season there, as you can see, going up against the Tennessee Titans, who do pretty good job only allowing 1.3 yards before contact. Just don't love this matchup overall. I think the Tennessee Titans defense is above average. Don't love that for the Jags and Mac Jones. Into some wide receivers, the good matchups here we have Cooper Kupp. Now, Cooper Kupp is the wide receiver 8 consensus. You're starting Cooper Kupp. I like this matchup going up against. He should get mostly Taron Johnson of the Bills. And I think that will be a very good matchup for Cooper Kupp there. And even Puka Nacua, but both those guys are obviously starts. But I do think it could be a pretty good matchup there for those players. And yeah, I expect Cooper Kupp to see Taron Johnson the most. Khalil Shakir seemingly has a good matchup each and every week. In PPR, he's almost become basically a start, at least a flex or a start in a 3 wide receiver league. He should see a lot of Quentin Lake here of the Rams. So I like that for for Khalil Shakir. He should be able to do some damage against the Rams, who their cornerbacks, the Rams have faced a lot of run heavy teams, but their underlying stats for the defensive backs have not been very good. So we'll see in a team that, can throw if they kind of throw all over them. And then Ladd McConkey, again, if he plays, the wide receiver 15 consensus going up against Connor of the Chiefs. I like that for Ladd McConkey a lot. I think McConkey had a pretty good game against the Chiefs the first time they played. And that's Chamari Connor, by the way. Chamari Connor. Ladd McConkey going up against the Chiefs those several weeks ago was 5 for 61 and a touchdown. So I think he can find some space here. I hope he plays Ladd McConkey because there's a chance he doesn't. I think he will, but he should see a lot of Connor here most of the game, and Connor's giving up 1.34 yards per route covered. So you're literally every time he's covering someone, they're getting 1.34 yards on average, which is good news for Lad McConkey. Into some bad matchups for wide receivers. Davante Adams going up against Ramsey and Fuller of the Miami Dolphins. Really don't love this for for the Jets guys. Dolphins, I believe, and I'm going to double check this. I believe the Dolphins are the best. They're the third best team against wide receivers. Ramsey and Fuller are part of the reason why. Think it could be a tough game for Davante Adams this week, who is consensus ranking wide receiver 19. JSN, who's been on fire lately, I think 3 or 4 good games in a row. He's a wide receiver 19 in points per game in half PPR, even higher in PPR. Again, playing the Cardinals, the Seahawks are. You see a lot of the Cardinal Seahawks matchups here. He's going up against Garrett Williams, who I think is a pretty good cornerback, slot cornerback, especially for Jackson Smith and Jigba. So I don't love that for him. I think that's who he's going to see the most of. JSN, that is. I don't think he's going to see much of any of the other guys, and only 0.63 yards per route covered for Garrett Williams. Compare that to who we were just talking about. I think it was Shamari Connor giving up 1.34 yards per route run. So JSN, I think you're probably starting him this week with all these buys, but I wouldn't be surprised if he has a bad game. Also, Keenan Allen, who's been kind of on fire the last 2 weeks, getting a lot of targets and production. Don't love his matchup against the 49ers guys, particularly Lenore. I don't love that. Lenore is one of the better cornerbacks and slot cornerbacks in the NFL. We'll see if Keenan Allen can do some work against him. And then we'll finish up with 3 good matchups for tight ends. Noah Fant against Kaiser White. I like that for Noah Fant. I think he could have a decent game. Again, it's Noah Fant. If you're streaming tight ends, I don't think he's a terrible matchup here. He's going up against, again, Kaiser White, who's giving up 1.2 yards per route covered. That's one of the worst in the entire NFL. And he's giving up 0.24 fantasy points per route covered, which is, again, one of the first. So literally, you run 4 routes against Kaiser White, you're getting a fantasy point, which just think about how many routes a tight end runs. Mike Gesicki is another one here, consensus ranking tight end 18. I like this for Mike Gesicki this week, going up against Kendricks of the Dallas Cowboys, who is giving up 0.78 yards per route route covered, excuse me. I think you can find some, besides Chase and the running backs, I think you can find some space here against Kendricks. And then Cade Otton, the consensus ranking tight end 10. He's the tight end 10 on the year, going up against Divine Diablo of the Raiders. I think for Cade Otton, he could do some damage here. And I'm not too worried. I know his numbers haven't looked good the 2 weeks since Mike Evans has come back, but I think that's more of a coincidence than, playing the Giants and stuff like that, than it is Mike Evans taking targets away. So, but there you have it, guys. No bad matchups for tight ends, really, at least tight ends that are start worthy. Not a great matchup for guys like Tommy Tremble and Daniel Bellinger, but you're not starting those guys. Appreciate everyone watching this. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you all in the next video.